Imagine the skies over Europe in 1944. The drone of engines fills the air. Hundreds of American bombers, Boeing B-29 Flying Fortresses, and consolidated B-24 Liberators, flying in tight, disciplined formations. Beneath them, the patchwork of occupied Europe rolls by. Ahead of them waits the Reich, bristling with flak batteries and patrolled by Messerschmitts and Focke-Wulfs. Escorting these bombers are the sleek, long-range P-51 Mustangs, weaving back and forth, ready to meet the German fighters. The air war over Europe is at its height, vast, brutal, relentless. Now imagine if, in those formations, among the workhorse B-17 and B-24s, there had been another machine, larger, sleeker, more powerful, the Boeing B-29 Superfortress. It was the most advanced bomber of the Second World War, pressurized, bristling with remote-controlled guns, able to fly higher, faster, farther, and carry more than any aircraft before it. And yet it never flew combat missions over Europe. Why? Why did the B-29 never join the struggle in the skies above Germany? Why did this technological marvel see service only on the other side of the world? That is the story we'll tell today. The B-29 story begins before America even entered the war. In 1939, with war breaking out in Europe, U.S. Army Air Corps planners were already looking ahead. They knew America's geography and global interests might demand something beyond the range of existing bombers. What they wanted was radical, an aircraft that could carry 20,000 pounds of bombs, fly at 30,000 feet, cruise at 350 miles per hour, and travel over 3,000 miles without refueling. At the time, these were almost science fiction numbers. Boeing rose to the challenge. The company had experience with the B-17, but the new bomber would be unlike anything before it. It would use enormous Wright R-3350 radial engines, have pressurized crew compartments, and feature remote-controlled gun turrets directed by analog computers. It was a massive gamble. The Superfortress project became the most expensive weapons program of the war, costing nearly $3 billion, more than the Manhattan Project that would eventually deliver the atomic bomb. The first prototype flew in September 1942, but the B-29 was rushed, and it showed. The engines overheated, fires broke out. Early test pilots called it a beautiful death trap. Dozens of modifications and fixes were needed. Yet by 1943, the Air Corps was desperate for the B-29. They envisioned fleets of them crushing Germany or Japan from the stratosphere. So where would they go first? Europe was compact. From Britain, American bombers could already reach the heart of Germany. A B-17 or B-24 with escorts could hit Berlin, Hamburg, the Ruhr industrial region, even as far as Prague or Vienna. The B-29's long legs, designed for intercontinental missions, were unnecessary. Why bring a sledgehammer when the job could be done with tools already in hand? The B-29 was enormous, 99 feet long, with a wingspan of 141 feet. It needed long, heavy, reinforced runways, far more demanding than the fields that already hosted thousands of American and British planes. By 1943 and 1944, Britain was one vast airfield. But space was precious. Villages, farmland, and countryside had already been torn up to build bases for B-17s, B-24s, and their escorts. To host B-29s would have meant even more upheaval: new runways, new hangars, new maintenance shops, all for an aircraft that wasn't strictly needed in that theater. The Wright R-3350 engines were powerful but dangerously unreliable. They overheated easily, especially during long climbs with full bomb loads. Fires often broke out in the nacelles, sometimes destroying entire aircraft. In Europe, where missions were flown daily and losses were already catastrophic, such temperamental machines would have been a liability. Crews and commanders valued reliability, and the B-17 and B-24, though less advanced, were proven workhorses. Most decisive of all, the Allies already had what they needed in Europe. By mid-1944, waves of bombers were flattening German industry, oil production, and transportation networks. The air war was brutal, but it was working. But there was another factor often overlooked: technology security. The B-29 was the most advanced bomber in the world. If it had been stationed in Britain, it would have been within reach of Soviet reconnaissance after the war, or even during it. Washington and the Air Corps were determined to keep this technology away from the Soviets. By sending the Superfortress to the Pacific, far from Europe, they minimized the risk that critical innovations, pressurization, remote gunnery, engine design, could fall into the hands of a future rival. But let's pause. What if the B-29 had gone to Europe? Imagine them streaking over the continent at 30,000 feet, too high for most flak batteries, too fast for many fighters to catch. Their bomb bays could have carried more destruction per sortie than the fleets of B-17s combined. Might they have shortened the war in Europe? Perhaps. The B-29 could have delivered heavier blows against German oil, synthetic fuel plants, and jet fighter factories. Some historians speculate that it might have accelerated the collapse of the Reich. But there's another side. The B-29 was temperamental and complex. Training new crews, maintaining the machines, building infrastructure, all of this would have diverted resources from the already successful bomber campaign. And given the new Cold War concerns, positioning the aircraft in Britain could have risked exposing its technology to the Soviets. So while it's tempting to imagine a sky filled with B-29s over Berlin, the reality is that they were needed elsewhere. By late 1943, the decision was clear. The European campaign would be fought with B-17 and B-24s, escorted by P-51s. The B-29 would be reserved for the Pacific. The first combat missions came not from Britain, but from India and China under Operation Matterhorn. Crews faced enormous difficulties, hauling fuel over the Himalayas just to stage missions into Japan. Losses were high and the impact limited. But in mid-1944, with the capture of the Marianas, Saipan, Tinian, Guam, new bases were built, their runways stretching for miles. From there, the B-29s finally came into their own. They struck Tokyo, Osaka, Nagoya. At first, high-altitude precision raids struggled against weather and jet stream winds. Then, under General Curtis LeMay, the strategy shifted to low-level night firebombing. Entire cities burned. And of course, in August 1945, two B-29s, the Enola Gay and Boxcar, delivered the atomic bombs to Hiroshima and Nagasaki, bringing the war to its final, terrible conclusion. So why did the B-29 never serve in Europe? Because it wasn't needed there. The geography didn't demand its range. The airfields couldn't easily host it. Its engines were unreliable. And, most importantly, the Allies already had the tools to finish the job over Germany. Additionally, by keeping the Superfortress in the Pacific, the U.S. minimized the risk that its most advanced technology would be exposed to the Soviet Union, a concern that would shape global strategy long after the war ended. Instead, the B-29 found its destiny in the Pacific, where no other aircraft could bridge the distances required. It was a warplane born too late for Europe, but just in time for Japan. And in the end, it was not over the skies of Berlin, but over the cities of Tokyo, Hiroshima, and Nagasaki that the Superfortress left its mark on history. The B-29 was the bomber that never came to Europe, because the war and the world needed it somewhere else. Thank you for watching. If we missed any part of this story, let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos from our channel.